Nicol's Commentary, Volume 3, Querimede Ugly, November 3rd, 1945. A note on relaxation. This is the second video of 2 from this particular meeting. Now, we have to speak tonight about posture, about muscles in short, about moving center. I suppose you know that each center hypnotizes the other centers. Supposing a man in his moving center invariably adopts a depressed muscular posture, and the small muscles of the face express gloom of some kind, do you think that such a man will be able to have a pleasant emotion or interesting thoughts? Certainly not. He is chained by his muscular posture. You all know that depressed states make us look depressed in posture. If one is intelligent enough in the work, one will alter one's posture if one is trying to separate from the negative emotion that has got hold of one, because each negative emotion will produce its own muscular posture. A man comes into the room, bent, drooping, gloom-faced, and you know at once he's in a negative state, which may be habitual unless he alters his muscular posture. In the same way, to return to the question of the small muscles of the face alone, if a person always has a drooped mouth, a weary or troubled or anxious look, you know quite well that this person is in a bad state, and that unless you can make this person smile or stand more upright, he may remain hypnotized by his posture. Understand, please, that posture is not merely a question of the big muscles of the body, but of the small muscles as well. I mean, that it is no good standing upright with a gloomy face, because the face is the 101 small muscles that control the expression of the face is most directly governed by the emotional center. For the face reflects the emotions more than anything else does. You would not like a man speaking between his teeth to tell you that he loves you. One would know at once that he was lying and merely using words without any real meaning, which unfortunately is our condition most of the time. Now, since the moving center can hypnotize the emotional and intellectual centers, it is a good thing to notice your posture and your facial expression, your face posture at times, and to study through internal attention how to alter these postures. The reason is that if you relax the muscles, especially the small muscles, you will get into a different state of emotion and of thought. Have you ever thought that they begin to assume central postures, certain facial expressions? Now, supposing that just at that moment, either this man or this woman observes himself or herself and starts by relaxing the muscles, both large and small, would it be possible for the state of rage to continue to grow? Certainly not. Unfortunately, we never work on ourselves just at the moment when we should, because we much prefer to fall into typical mechanical reactions to the ordinary affairs of life rather than to take them more consciously with some degree of self-remembering. In fact, a man flying into a rage, if he could observe the tensions in his muscles, would really be a man who could remember himself at the critical moments, and this would entirely change his behavior. Try, therefore, to study relaxation when you can. Notice how your face muscles are contracted, and by putting your internal attention into the face muscles to relax them, I advise you to begin with the muscles around your eyes, and then the muscles around your nose, those muscles which sneer so easily, and then the small muscles around your mouth, your cheeks, and then put your attention into those muscles which are just under the chin, in front of the neck, and then go around the back of your head and relax those muscles that make you stiff-necked. And then into the bigger muscles around your shoulders, and gradually descend through internal attention right down to your toes. Of course, this takes a long time, but it's a very good thing to try to do. I've left out the muscles of the hands. I should have said pass from the shoulders down to the arms to the hands and begin with the wrist muscles. Put your internal attention into your wrist muscles so that your wrists are quite flexible, quite dropped down, and then try to go into the small muscles of the fingers and relax them. Everyone is going through the muscular tensions in their bodies in this way will get to know themselves or get to know for themselves certain groups of muscles which are not ordinarily relaxed properly. Remember that above all, that you cannot relax just by saying to yourself, relax. It is an actual exercise of internal attention, and it is it's a directed effort that has to be made comparatively consciously. And even if you do it only once a week, you will get results. Often people are kept awake at night because certain groups of muscles begin in a tense state. They observe their emotional center and their intellectual center and try to relax. That is, not identify with these two centers, but they do not observe through their internal attention the muscular contractions that exist in their body. Now, this paper is about muscular relaxation, which is about relaxing the moving center. I will remind you again that the work says that every center can hypnotize another center. In the case of moving center, this means certain typical postures and typical expressions induce in you typical emotions and typical thoughts. For example, a hurried person who cannot stop rushing about is a person who has a moving center that assumes certain postures or positions, or rather, in this case, certain movements, which belong to the same idea and therefore is always hypnotized by moving center, assuming these postures and movements. These hurried movements would induce hurried and anxious emotions and hurried and anxious thoughts. This is where illness sometimes is so good. I can only say that I have noticed in myself quite very often, illness quiets the moving center and so often does a great deal of good by relaxing us. Perhaps some of you have noticed the same thing. I may not be emotionally anxious or have any reason to be, but if I am accustomed to making hurried movements and apparently never have any time for anything, my moving center will hypnotize my emotional center into feeling anxiety and feeling harassed. Of course, we must not think for a moment that we are all going to begin to walk about majestically and slowly just to show off how we are relaxed. One has to be really relaxed, though. Internal attention, or one has to be really relaxed through internal attention when one wishes to be, and when one feels one needs to be relaxed. If you will start with the small muscles of your face and do this exercise quite sincerely, you will be very surprised to find out how often rather difficult and worrying thoughts completely cease. For example, stop frowning for a short time. I mean, don't just stop frowning because you're told not to frown, but through internal attention, really go to the muscles that are frowning, and lo and behold, all your frowning thoughts will disappear. This means that they are kept going by the posture of your face. Again, people who stick out their jaws and clench their fists find that it is quite remarkable if they can cease to do this. They feel quite alien from themselves. But since we all wish to remain mechanical and do not wish to change at all, I fancy that people will very soon stick out their jaws and clench their fists and make chest as before. Now, in discussing this paper, please remember that we start in the work with relaxing the muscles of the face, and this takes a lot of practice in putting the consciousness into these muscles and relaxing them one by one, and remember especially the small skin muscles just underneath the chin. and the muscles of the back of the neck. In my personal experience, I have found that relaxing the wrist muscles when I have no time to do anything else is extremely useful. Let your hands drop, because the hands so easily express violence.